Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Well, hello, Catholic pilgrims. Welcome to day 79 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. Have you ever wondered what Christ looks like? I bet you have. Today we're going to be talking about the image of Christ that Sister Faustina has been told to have painted. She's not actually painting it herself. She has an artist that is doing that for her, but she's going to be kind of lamenting how Christ looks in the painting. So we will be talking about what does Christ look like. So our readings today are from Notebook 1, Numbers 3:12 through 3:17. Once when I went outside the convent to go to confession, St. Michael's Church, I chanced upon my confessor, Father Sapotzko, saying Mass just then. After a while, I saw the child Jesus on the altar joyfully and playfully holding out his hands to him. But a moment later, the priest took the beautiful child in his hands, broke him up, and ate him alive. At the first instant, I felt a dislike for the priest for having done this to Jesus, but I was immediately enlightened in the matter and understood that this priest was very pleasing to God. Once, when I was visiting the artist, Eugene Kazimirovsky, who was painting the image, and saw that it was not as beautiful as Jesus is, I felt very sad about it, and I hid this deep in my heart. When we had left the artist's house, Mother Superior Irene stayed in town to attend to some matters while I returned home alone. I went immediately to the chapel and wept a good deal. I said to the Lord, "Who will paint you as beautiful as you are?" Then I heard these words, "Not in the beauty of the color, nor of the brush lines, the greatness of this image, but in my grace." When I went to the garden one afternoon, my guardian angel said to me, "Pray for the dying." And so I began at once to pray the rosary with the gardeners for the dying. After the rosary, we said various prayers for the dying. After the prayers, the wards began to chat gaily among themselves. In spite of the noise they were making, I heard these words in my soul, "Pray for me." But as I could not understand these words very well, I moved a few steps away from the wards, trying to think who it could be who was asking me to pray. Then I heard the words, "I am sister." This sister was in Warsaw, while I was at that time in Vilnius. "Pray for me until I tell you to stop. I am dying." Immediately I began to pray fervently for her, addressing myself to the expiring heart of Jesus. She gave me no respite, and I kept praying from 3 o'clock until 5. At 5 I heard the words, "Thank you," and understood that she had died. But during Holy Mass on the following day, I continued to pray fervently for her soul. In the afternoon, a postcard came saying that Sister had died at such and such a time. I understood that it was at the same hour when she had said to me, "Pray for me." Mother of God, your soul was plunged into a sea of bitterness. Look upon your child and teach her to suffer and to love while suffering. Fortify my soul that pain will not break it. Mother of grace, teach me to live by the power of God. Once the Mother of God came to visit me. She was sad. Her eyes were cast down. She made it clear that she wanted to say something, and yet on the other hand it was as if she did not want to speak to me about it. When I understood this, I began to beg the Mother of God to tell me and to look at me. Just then Mary looked at me with a warm smile and said, "You are going to experience certain sufferings because of an illness and the doctors. You will also suffer much because of the image, but do not be afraid of anything." The next day I fell ill and suffered a great deal, just as the Mother of God had told me. But my soul was ready for the sufferings. Suffering is a constant companion of my life. O my God, my only hope, I have placed all my trust in you, and I know I shall not be disappointed. Okay, so as you know, Sister Faustina has been commissioned to paint this image of the Divine Mercy with Christ with the two rays. We've pretty much all seen it, at least you've hopefully seen it by now. There is the original painting that Jesus looks a certain way, and then there are other variations of it. Same idea. It's Jesus standing, pointing to his heart, and two rays are coming forth, but the face of Christ looks different in kind of the way he's standing. I prefer one over the other because I'm very picky about how Jesus looks. I know that shouldn't bother me, but when it comes to the saints and Mary and Jesus, in my head, I have them looking a certain way, and there are certain depictions of them that really draw my eye and help me to really meditate upon them and think about them and pray to them. And then there are some images that don't quite work for me. So I know that's not the important thing. I know it's not a real representation of Christ or Mary or the saints, but in my head, I like them to look a certain way. And so, over the past year, we've had this huge controversy over what Christ really looks like. Now, I have been to the Holy Land, and our guide is an Israeli-born man, one of the best tour guides in the world. He's Christian. He was such a wealth of knowledge. Oh my gosh, I felt like I needed to take graduate studies notes while he was telling us about stuff. One of the interesting things that he said was that a lot of scholars are starting to think that Christ possibly had red hair. Now, I'm not talking like Little Mermaid Ariel colored red hair. We're talking about kind of maybe an auburn color of hair. And we all were kind of taken aback by this, but he said, if you look at paintings or drawings of Christ from early on in Christianity, you will notice that many of them, Christ has red hair in them. He's like, and if you look around here in the Holy Land as we travel around from church to church, notice Christ. He's depicted with red hair. He's like, King David was also depicted as having red hair in the Bible. I was like, this is interesting. So anyway, as we traveled around the Holy Land, I started looking at the different artwork and the different paintings that were in the different churches and places that we went, and lo and behold, Christ is depicted as having red hair. Now, again, like I said, it wasn't like orange or Little Mermaid red. It was just kind of an auburn, reddish tinge to it. Now, if you go and you look at the Divine Mercy image, the original one, you can notice that there is some red painted into his hair, which is very interesting. Now, we don't know for positive, and he told us very quickly why a lot of scholars think that Christ possibly had kind of an auburn hair, but I can't remember why, and I should ask him actually. Anyway, there was this controversy this past year about, what Christ really looks like, and Christ isn't a white man from Europe, and Christ doesn't look like that, and Christ actually looks like a black African man, and Christ actually looks like this and that. And then through all of this, I was like, nobody knows exactly what Christ looks like, okay? Since the dawn of Christianity, have painted Christ through their eyes. And if you're a white person, you're going to tend to paint maybe Christ in a way that looks like you. And if you are an African American, you may paint Christ in a way that looks like you. And if you are Middle Eastern, you may paint Christ in a way that looks like you. And on and on and on and on. And none of these are wrong because we honestly don't know. And it's okay to depict Christ in a way that, speaks to our soul, right? Mary is depicted in many, many, many different ways throughout the whole world, and it's beautiful. In Washington, D.C., at the Basilica, I can't think of the name of it, the National Basilica, whatever that's called, the Immaculate Conception, I want to say. Too many churches that I've been into, I can't remember. But anyway, when you go in there and you go downstairs, there are tons of little chapels set up for Mary from around the world, and she's depicted in all these very different races and ethnicities, and it's so beautiful. It's just, you walk around and you see how people, in Asia view her in their mind, and you see how people, in South America view her in their mind, and there's nothing offensive about it. It's just people expressing themselves through art, because Christ is for all. And so when people draw him and paint him, in their race or their ethnicity. It's just a beautiful expression of them connecting with him. Now, we know that Christ was an actual, in his very human form, a Middle Eastern Jew. He was. But what I like to think about is, what does Christ look like? I have an image in my mind. It's kind of fuzzy because I don't really know, and so I can't get his features crystal clear. I have often wondered what he looks like, what he sounds like. I have often thought about what it would feel like to hug Christ and how amazing that would feel. I've thought about that many, many times, and just looking into his eyes and seeing nothing but love there. I have thought about that so much. But, Sister Faustina, she's a little upset with how the image looks. And she goes back to her chapel, and she's so upset, and she's crying, and she's like, Jesus, who's going to paint you as beautiful as you are? And Christ says, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What matters is the message that comes through in the painting. My grace and my mercy, that's what matters. It's not going to be a perfect depiction of what Christ looks like, and that's okay. And don't worry about that. My message that I want to get through with this painting is the bigger deal. So, I sympathize with Sister Faustina, because sometimes when I've seen paintings of Christ, I've wanted to cry, because I'm like, no, that just isn't how he looks. You can't make Jesus look like that. And, again, it doesn't really matter, because we honestly don't know. But I do enjoy pondering what Christ looks like, and someday we will get to know. So that's all for today, Catholic pilgrims. I will leave you there. And until next time, live the faith boldly and travel well.